The picture on Ben's phone felt like a slap. Lily, my supposedly fragile little sister, sprawled half-naked across my college boyfriend, the star athlete who was supposed to be mine. The scent of betrayal hung thick in the air, a sickly echo of the cheap perfume clinging to the room. This wasn't just childhood jealousy rearing its ugly head. This was a calculated betrayal, a web of lies woven for years. But Lily underestimated me. The anger that erupted felt primal, a roar that tore through years of suppressed resentment. This family reunion wasn't going as planned. In fact, it was about to explode. Lily wasn't supposed to live. The doctors, their faces grim behind sterile masks, had warned Mom and Dad it was a miracle she even held on for a week. But Lily, a tiny fighter with eyes the color of forget-me-nots, defied them all. She survived, but with a head tilted permanently to one side and a body forever battling against its own limitations. Life became a relentless symphony of hospital visits and therapy sessions. Lily, the fragile one, became the center of our universe. Achievements, big or small, were celebrated with a fervor that bordered on hysteria. My own accomplishments, aced exams or winning the debate team trophy, paled in comparison to Lily's wobbly first steps. My younger brother, Max, just 5 years old, became an afterthought, a shadow clinging to the fringes of our chaotic existence. I was 10 when the competition started. It was subtle at first, a pout here, a snatched toy there. But Lily, my supposed angel, possessed a cunning hidden beneath her childlike facade. She'd play the damsel in distress, manipulating Mom and Dad with tears and well-timed tantrums. I became the villain, the careless older sister who dared to upset the delicate balance. Years blurred into a kaleidoscope of frustration and isolation. My achievements were met with polite smiles, quickly overshadowed by Lily's latest feat, like mastering the alphabet at the ripe old age of 6. The final straw, the betrayal that severed the last thread of my loyalty, arrived on a crisp autumn day during my sophomore year of college. Mark, the hockey team captain with a smile that could melt glaciers, was my first love. We'd planned a surprise visit for his birthday weekend, a stolen getaway from the monotony of exams. My heart pounded with excitement as I unlocked his dorm room, ready to jump into his arms. The scene that greeted me was ripped from a nightmare. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating a tableau that froze the blood in my veins. Lily, stark naked, sprawled languidly across Mark's bare chest. His hand, absent-mindedly tracing circles on her hip, confirmed my worst suspicions. Then he turned his back to me, strong and naked, tangled with Lily's limbs. Her face was flushed, hair a mess, a strangled gasp escaping her lips as Mark moved against her. I couldn't tear my eyes away. The room pulsed with a raw energy that both repelled and fascinated me. Mark's hand slid down Lily's back, sending a shiver through her. Her breath hitched again, a sound that was both pain and pleasure. His every thrust sent the bed frame juddering, the rhythm erratic, urgent. It was a primal dance, a desperate tangle of limbs and moans that laid bare a connection I never knew existed. Against my will, my gaze drifted to Lily's face. Her eyes were squeezed shut, a tear escaping to trace a glistening path down her cheek. But beneath the distress was an undeniable pleasure etched on her features, a raw abandon that sent a jolt through me. A strange heat pooled in my lower stomach, a confusing mix of anger and arousal that tightened my throat. A sickeningly sweet scent of cheap perfume clinged to the room. The scream that tore from my throat was primal, a sound of utter devastation. Lily, startled, whipped around, eyes wide with a mix of fear and defiance. Mark, scrambling to cover himself, stammered incoherent apologies. I ran, tears blurring my vision. The image of their betrayal seared into my brain. The phone call to Ben, a kind-hearted soul I met in my philosophy class, was a lifeline. He dropped everything, driving through the night to be by my side. It was in his arms, safe and warm that the first stirrings of healing began. Life, thankfully, isn't a static picture. I graduated, found a fulfilling job, and married Ben, the man who had become my anchor. We built a life that, while not perfect, was peaceful and genuine. But the scars of my childhood remained a constant ache in my heart. Every year, a strained truce was arranged for a family gathering. This year, I reluctantly agreed, hand in Ben's, to this annual charade. Lily, now married to Mark, arrived with an air of entitlement that would have choked a saint. The snide comments, thinly veiled as jokes, started as soon as we walked in. Tension crackled in the air, thick enough to slice with a knife. Ben, sensing my discomfort, took my hand. His silent support, a balm to my simmering anger. It was during a lull in the conversation that Lily, with a mischievous glint in her eyes, announced, "Mark's new promotion means we might move closer to you, sis. Wouldn't that be delightful?" The carefully constructed dam within me shattered. "Don't you dare," I hissed, the years of buried resentment boiling to the surface. "Just because you married him doesn't mean you get to rewrite history. You were a backstabbing little..." Before I could finish the sentence, Ben stepped forward, his voice firm but calm. "Lily," he addressed her directly, "the truth is, none of Maya's achievements ever received the recognition they deserved. While yours, significant or not, were celebrated with fanfare." Lily's face twisted into a mask of fury. "How dare you?" she screeched. "You don't even know what she's done." "Oh, on the contrary," Ben continued, unfazed. "Maya's hard work and dedication are what brought her success. Unlike you, who seem to rely on others, particularly Maya, for your self-worth." A gasp escaped Mom's lips. For the first time, Dad looked at me with a dawning realization. The room held its breath, waiting for Lily's response. But instead of the usual retort, a single tear rolled down her cheek, followed by another. Her carefully constructed facade crumbled, revealing a raw vulnerability beneath. "It's true," she choked out, her voice barely a whisper. I never had to work for anything. You just gave it all to Maya." The revelation hung heavy in the air, a truth unspoken for far too long. Mom, her eyes reddened, reached out to comfort Lily, but she pushed her away with surprising force. "Don't touch me," she cried, her voice laced with bitter anger. "This is all your fault. You never loved me. You just saw me as a burden." The accusation was a gut punch. I wanted to lash out, to deny it all, but somehow Ben's calmness held me back. He took a step towards my sister, his gaze unwavering. "Lily," he said gently, "your parents love you very much. But love isn't about constant praise. Sometimes it's about pushing you to be your best self, about teaching you to stand on your own 2 feet." His words seemed to pierce through her anger, leaving her trembling. Then, a bombshell dropped that shattered the fragile peace further. "Speaking of not standing on your own 2 feet," Ben's voice hardened, a steely glint in his eyes. "Did you by any chance send me those messages?" Lily's head snapped up, her eyes widening in panic. My heart hammered against my ribs. "What messages?" Ben reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone. "The ones with inappropriate pictures?" The room erupted in gasps. Mark, who had been unusually quiet throughout the confrontation, looked at Lily with a dawning horror. My parents' faces drained of color, the weight of Ben's words finally sinking in. Lily's carefully constructed world was collapsing around her. The betrayal, the lies, the years of manipulation, all laid bare in a matter of minutes. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but nothing coherent came out. Realizing there was nothing left to say, I rose decisively. "Come on, Ben," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "We don't belong here anymore." He squeezed my hand reassuringly before we turned to leave. At the doorway, I cast a final glance at my family, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling on their faces. "You wanted closeness, Lily?" I said, my voice devoid of anger, just a touch of sadness. "This is what it looks like. It isn't about proximity, it's about honesty and trust. You may have gotten the man, but you lost the sister." With that, we walked out, leaving them to grapple with the ruins of their own making. The days that followed were a blur of emotions. Ben's unwavering support was my anchor. He helped me process the years of pain, the anger, and the lingering sense of betrayal. Finally, a few weeks later, the inevitable phone call came. Mom, her voice heavy with regret, apologized for everything. But apologies, I realized, weren't enough. It would take a lot of time and effort to even consider rebuilding any semblance of a relationship. Max, however, surprised me. He called not to apologize for Lily, but to apologize for his silence. He admitted to witnessing her behavior for years, but being too afraid to speak up. He missed his sister, he said, and truly hoped for some form of reconciliation. That night, Ben held me close as we talked about the future. A future where we were a team, where trust and honesty were the cornerstones of our relationship. A future where family wasn't defined by blood, but by the people who loved and supported you unconditionally. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. The pain of the past, the fractured family ties, would take time to heal. But for the first time in a long time, there was a glimmer of hope. The shackles of the past were finally broken, and I was free to build a life I deserved. A life filled with love, respect, and a healthy dose of self-worth.